Start it. 0307-2022 03920 on the internet connected clock. Phone is at 66%, but that's just because I'm using it as a prop. Here we go.
There are a lot of people who aren't pleased with the Lord's Prayer being the model of prayer. They need something more from prayer. And there are many translations, but if it's actually the words of Christ, we teach it to children and then we forget about it in our day-to-day life. Why don't we train up a child in the way that they should go, and when they're old, they won't depart, in a way that is, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us, or debt and debtors if you're nasty. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil, for thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory. Why is that phraseology not the most impressive thing that we have to rally behind as a body of believers? If we're to look around right now, what kingdom has come? What will is being done? When I was in high school, I got a very long-winded interpretation of love your neighbor as yourself. When we can drop all prejudice, limitations, stereotypes, and bias for ourselves and one another, then we will know the true meaning of love, and by that we have no choice but to see God. Graduate of Central High School, 1999, so that will give you the time frame that this was a thought that was on my mind. Why? Up to that point, I had survived a lifetime of bullying. Not even saying that what I was experiencing as bullying was the full intention when someone woke up. But if something hurts your neighbor, you're not capable of claiming that you're loving your neighbor as yourself. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven involves loving your neighbor as yourself. When we can drop all prejudice, limitations, stereotypes, and biases for ourselves and one another, then we will know the true meaning of love, and by that we have no choice but to see God. There's a lot of prejudice that exists in our world, and a lot of people are somewhat prejudiced towards themselves. There are levels of personal accountability that even within the church there is no grace for. Individual comes to church, and if they don't look like a polished politician, they are very much scrutinized, and the easiest scrutinization begins with race and sometimes the way sexual orientation presents itself through style.
Oh, that individual needs to get delivered.
Okay, what's their life like though? What's their ebb and flow? What's the last thing when they leave and the first thing that they're concerned with when they cross a threshold? What gives them the God-given characteristics that is the reason why they still exist and why they even came to church? Shout out to our military though. Y'all are greater than the machines that y'all operate, and your lives matter. You put on a uniform, if you made certain everything was straight, if you survived basic. Shout out to you, I believe you deserve more than 10%. That's me loving my neighbor as myself. I couldn't do what they do, and they're a necessary part in keeping us safe from tyranny. Why wouldn't I want to go all out for them as individuals and as members of our community, especially if you went to war? The hero's welcome should never end. It shouldn't even be to the level of,
I'm just doing this so I can get money for college.
Loving your neighbor as yourself puts easier decisions on the neighbor.
Oh, you actually want to be like an architect? You don't want to go kill our enemies because blood is gross to you? Well, after you retire, you can go think about all the houses that you've seen demolished.
We shouldn't put limitations on individuals who, at the end of the day, want to exist and go home and exist again the next day. But in America not loving her neighbor as herself, the war on drugs literally has incarcerated some of the best minds. If you fight someone who has come to the decision to not produce life for whatever reason, if you fight that individual to go ahead and produce life and then live in a society where you know homelessness exists, that's wicked and wretched. Especially if you use the rhetoric,
well, that individual might have the cure for cancer in their brain because God gives gifts to men.
And women and children. And that child gets the worst access to education because their community's poor, and actually excels academically in prison to the extent where we know for about 5 years or more, Harvard's debate team was bested by Rikers Island inmates. Did anybody say, hey, maybe we need to go and look at what happened to the individual's life that got them here? Or are they just regarded as a criminal that needs rehabilitation when the real criminals oftentimes have special parking privilege? The real criminals often don't cook for themselves. We've got to rebuke the cognitive dissonance because perspective is everything.